This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, all. A very warm welcome to all the participants and speaker in today's lecture of Mahajava lecture series. Today we are conducting fourth lecture. Today we are conducting our fourth lecture by Dr. Shailesh Deshpande sir on Manyagatvad. Before starting today's session, I would instruct to participants to kindly turn off their mic and cameras off during the lecture. If you have got any queries regarding today's session or lecture, you can put it in the chat box, which will be answered after the end of the lecture. No direct questions will be entertained. Now I would request Dr. Mangesh Patil sir to introduce our today's speaker. Over to Dr. Mangesh Patil sir.
Thank you, Dr. Amit. It was really a pleasure to invite and introduce today's multi-talented speaker, Dr. Shailesh Deshpande. Dr. Shailesh Deshpande is one of my friend, and I will introduce in brief, but it will take more time than ever. So, Dr. Shailesh Deshpande has completed his BMS from Pune University in 2001 and completed his MD Kai Chikitsa in 2006 from R.A. Poddar Ayurved Medical College, Worli. He has also done his BA in Sanskrit from Tilak Maharashtra University in 2000 and Diploma in Abhyanga and Mardan Tantra in 1998 from Tilak Maharashtra University, Pune. He is currently working as professor and head of the department in Kai Chikitsa department for our undergraduate, postgraduate, and PhD courses. He was worked as lecturer and reader in the Department of Kai Chikitsa at CARC Pune from 1st January 2014 to November 2018. He has also received many awards, and few are Vaidya Ram Shiromani Dwivedi Kai Chikitsa Award for securing first rank at post-graduation final exam in Mumbai University, received Certificate of Merit from Charak Pharma for securing first rank in MD Kai Chikitsa final year examination, received Maha Ayush Kamal Award in January 2018 for contribution in Ayush propagation, and also received Doctor of the Year Award 2017 January at PDES Ayurved Tribunal Nigdi Pradhikaran, Pune. He has worked as research fellow and project assistant in many projects, worked as chief investigator in more than 10 sponsored clinical trials for various pharmaceutical companies, and published more than 21 research papers in peer-reviewed journals. He has guided more than 16 PG students and published 3 books, namely Shatkriya Kal, Unfolding Concepts in Ayurveda, and Introduction to Panchakarma. He has received Best Paper Award in conferences and delivered more than 30 lectures for undergraduate and postgraduate students on various platforms. He is multi-talented person, and I hereby welcome once again Dr. Shailesh Deshpande and request him to start his today's presentation on Manyagatvat. Dr. Shailesh Deshpande, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mangesh Patil sir, for the generous introduction. Without wasting much time, let us move towards today's topic, that is Manyagata Vata, Nidana, and Chikitsa. Now, if we see the incidence of neck pain all over the world, we will see that each and every country in the universe has the patients of Manyagata Vata in less incidence or more. So there is not a single country spared that does not have a cases of neck pain or Manyagata Vata, to be precise, according to Ayurveda. So the point is, if you move to any of the countries for your practice, you will definitely get the patients of Manyagata Vata, that is for sure. So it can be our bread and butter if we have the command of treating patients that have problems with the cervical spine. If you look at the prevalence rate of neck pain, it is moving around 10.4 to 21.3. The data is from 2010. Currently, the prevalence rate might have been increased. So a quite large number of people suffer from it. And the best part is recovery is possible. It has been estimated that 33% to 65% complete recovery is seen at the end of a year. Now, the point is, whenever we talk about Vata Vyadhis, it has been told that many of the Vata Vyadhis are not curable, and we need to give palliative treatment to the patient for very long time. And even after good amount of treatment, good amount of time spent on the treatment, recovery is not possible. Here, the patient who are suffering from neck pain, the recovery is possible in them, and we know that once a patient is successfully recovered by any of the treatment, the patient will bring 10 similar type of patient to the doctor. That's why it can be our one of the good propagating points if we can treat such type of patients successfully. Even though recovery is possible, there are relapses also seen in this type of patients, and high prevalence is seen in women in high income countries and in urban areas. So patients who will be suffering from this particular type of problem will have good paying capacity, and the many of us practice in urban areas, so we can get more number of patients in our vicinity who are suffering from Manyagata Vata. So getting command on this type of disease can give us good amount of revenue and good amount of publicity amongst the patient as well. Now, who can suffer from neck pain? You can see in this slide that a population from pediatric to geriatric age group can suffer from Manyagata Vata. Generally, in the cases of Sandhigata Vata or diseases of Vata Vyadhi are considered to be the diseases that are engulfing a person in the elderly ages, but it is not so with Manyagata Vata. So, any age group of patients is liable, can suffer from neck pain or Manyagata Vata. So we can get patients from various age groups. So age restriction is not generally seen in this for this particular type of a disease or condition. Now, on the top of it, we have the IT revolution. You can see here everyone is busy in some chit chat or playing games or doing some work on their smartphones or laptops. It is a common picture in a family that even though everybody is sitting around at one place, everybody will be busy in his or her mobile or tablet or laptop. And this particular position that is seen in these pictures is very harmful for causing diseases related to neck. And it is not picture in urban India, but you can see that the smartphone has reached to the root levels, to the small villages, and the villagers are also using these phones for various purposes. Whatever may be the purpose of using these phones or these gadgets, they have a common effect, that is neck pain after prolonged use. And the cherry on the cake is the pandemic effect. Currently, we see this type of pictures in every home. Due to the pandemic of COVID-19, large number of almost all students need to use such type of gadgets, and you can imagine that if these students need to use mobile phones and laptops or tablets for their day-to-day schooling and education, what would be their condition 10 or 15 years after, once they complete their education? Their necks would be aching at that time. So even though IT revolution and pandemic IT revolution has made a lot of changes in our day-to-day lives. It has also brought with us some of the side effects such as recurrent neck pain or increased cases of cervical spondylosis or increased cases of prolapse intervertebral disc related with the neck. So in the midst of this chaos of this COVID-19, there is also an opportunity for all the practitioners and all the budding doctors to command on this particular disease so that we have a good amount of patients coming to us and we can generate good amount of revenue, we can get popularity, and we can serve our country by successfully treating this particular type of condition. But the problem that lies with Ayurvedic practitioners is that we are stuck up in this particular samprapti of Vatavyadhi. I know that everybody who is listening now must have gone through it, must have by hearted it, must have written it in the examination papers for multiple times. But it is not the end of everything. Rather, it is a very small shloka that gives us just the tip of iceberg, and to successfully command any particular Vata Vyadhi, we need to dig inside. So let us see how modern science deals with such type of condition before we enter the field of Ayurveda. We know that in modern science, the anatomy is described perfectly. The number of cervical vertebrae, the number of cervical nerve roots, the blood supply, the venous drainage from them, all is mentioned, all is explained in very, very great detail that is lacking in the field of Ayurveda or in the Ayurvedic terminologies. Similarly, the musculature that is basically conducting the movements of neck has been explained in modern sciences to the greatest of extent, and that's why a modern physician or a modern doctor has good amount of insight of what are the possible anatomical changes or physiological changes that could happen in a case of neck pain or a case of cervical spondylosis that an Ayurvedic physician or Ayurvedic practitioner might not have because of lack of this knowledge. Similarly, there are different cervical nerve roots are explained right from cervical 1 to cervical 8, and their branches and how they form the brachial plexus and all. It has been explained extensively in which area of the arm, in which area of the chest these nerve roots supply. This nerve supply is there is also explained in great detail, and that gives a comprehensive data, a comprehensive information about the status of cervical spine when a case of cervical pain comes to an allopathic practitioner. So whenever a patient of neck pain comes to an allopathic practitioner, he will see it in such way, whether the pain is acute or chronic, whether the pain is radiating to one arm or both the arms, what is the status of muscle wasting, or what is the status of muscle, is there any wasting, what is the strength or grip that is observed, what is the stiffness if it is present, and is there any history of trauma. This is how an allopathic practitioner will look at this case. Along with that, the practitioner will try to gather the information about associated complaints if there are any. He will try to gather the information about the associated illnesses like diabetes, mellitus, or hypertension, because a lot of times such type of condition like tingling and numbness or muscle wasting or muscle power gradient or loss is also seen because of complications of diabetes, mellitus, or hypertension. Is there any stress involved? What are the addictions? And what is the occupation of the subject? All these things will be considered by an allopathic practitioner, and then he will try to reach to some conclusion. Along with that, there will be a lot of examinations that he will do, physical examinations. Like here, the muscular wasting is evident wasting of supraspinatus and infraspinatus muscles is visible. If you can compare it with the normal side, that is the right side, you can see that there is muscle loss on the left side, which we recognize as muscular wasting. Similarly, here also, if you can see the thenar prominence, and here also in the second picture, if you can appreciate the snub box, that you will be able to find the muscular wasting if the patient is suffering from some serious pathology related with nerves in the cervical spine area. Along with that, the practitioner will definitely look at the dermatomes. Dermatomes are nothing but the nerve roots, the examination of the functioning of the specific nerves. You can see here the third cervical nerve, fourth cervical nerve, fifth, sixth, and the thoracic nerves, their area in which they supply the nervous, where they are innervated, and from which area they carry the function of tactile sensation. So examination of arms in this area on the basis of this picture can give us an idea about the involvement of nervous tissue. It can happen that a patient may complain us about only neck pain, but on physical examination, we may find that that the tactile sensation or the fine touch sensation in one particular nerve area is diminished, and that's why we can have an idea of involvement or strangulation of that particular nerve root or nerve roots if there are multiple, or damage to those particular nerve roots that can happen, that might be the an outcome of the neck pain, or that might be mimicking as a neck pain alone. So examination of the dermatomes is very important as far as the cervical spine area is concerned. Similarly, this is the distribution of second, third, and fourth cervical nerves and fifth cervical nerve, in which area they supply. These two pictures should be engraved in our brain. So whenever a patient comes to us, after examination of these dermatomes, that is superficial and deep touch reflexes, we can have an idea about the possible involvement of nerve roots. Then after these examinations, there are some investigations that are to be conducted in these patients, like X-ray of cervical spine. Generally, an AP and lateral view is done, but in cases where there is suspected injury to the transverse ligament or suspected odontoid process fracture, odontoid view, that is open mouth view, is also advised in cases of cervical pain. And routine blood investigations and urine investigations are also done, especially if the patient is also having raised ESR and low HB. It is suggestive of rheumatoid arthritis, and rheumatoid arthritis can mimic as a case of neck pain in the early stages. Then CRP can also be done. CRP is an inflammatory marker. So whenever there is neck pain due to some inflammatory process in the cervical spines, then the CRP will be raised, and that can give us an hint. In cases of ankylosing spondylosis, we have raised HLA-B27 levels. Then MRI is also necessary to precisely see what is the status of nerves, what is the status of nerve roots, whether there is any strangulation of the nerves root because of the prolapse intervertebral disc, whether there is any tissue edema, whether there is any pathology related with the spine itself that can be ruled out in the MRI. And there can also be EMG, that is electromyography, and nerve conduction velocity. If there is motor loss or lack of motor activity seen in one limb or another limb, then EMG and NCV can also be done. So based on these substantial history of patient, thorough physical examination, and with the help of these many investigations, an allopathic physician or a surgeon reaches to some conclusion about Manyagata Vata. So what treatment algorithm is followed in cases of Manyagata Vata or in acute neck pain? As far as modern science is concerned, we need to first categorize the patient into two parts. If the neck pain is radiating or if the neck pain is non-radiating. Radiating means if the pain is following a path from neck towards either of the upper arms or not. If the neck pain is radiating, then we have to categorize it again according to our physical examination whether there is any neurological or muscular deficit present or there is no neurological or muscular deficit seen in the patient. The patient who have radiating pain and they have some kind of neurological or muscular deficit, they are uh, alarming patients and they need urgent care and urgent intervention and a thorough investigation as well. So in such cases, an X-ray of cervical spine and MRI, and if required, the battery of other blood investigations to rule out inflammatory processes is also required. In cases, we can ask the patient to take a reference from a spine specialist so that we keep ourselves safe medico-legally, that we are not missing something for as far as the diagnosis is concerned. And then after this thing, we can start our own treatment to the patient. If the pain is radiating and there is no neurological or muscular deficit, still then X-ray of cervical spine is required, because in some cases, due to our own limitation or due to limitation of the patient, we are unable to rule out the possibility of neurological and muscular deficit. So in all such cases, we need to do an cervical spine X-ray and if needed MRI also, and then treat the patient. If the X-ray is showing some abnormality, then we need to go for an MRI followed by the spine reference as SOS, and then we can start with the treatment. The patient who have non-radiating pain, non-radiating neck pain are relatively easier for treatment. In such cases also, even though the pain is not radiating to the either of the extremities, there can be neurological or muscular deficit that we need to find when we are examining the patient. And if such deficit is present in the patient, then in those cases also X-ray and MRI is a must. And also the spine reference. And then after ruling out every severe disease, we can begin with our own treatment. If the pain is not radiating and there is no neurological and muscular deficit, then X-ray may be done or may not be done. It depends on the judgment of the treating consultant, but X-ray may be done or may not be done, and then we can start with the treatment. So this is how the modern science follows the treatment algorithm while treating the cases of acute neck pain. So what type of contemporary treatment or modern and other treatments are given to the patient? There are drugs therapies like NSAIDs, muscle relaxant. In cases of stress, there are antidepressants are given. If it is unable to subside the pain, then trigger point injections are given, steroids are injected or given orally. Along with that, there are exercises, manipulations, immobilization with cervical collar. Then the physiotherapist generally advise ultrasound or nerve stimulation or traction, and people are also taking treatment from acupuncture or acupressure. But even though all these treatments are available, the condition of the patient is like this, because all these treatments are unable to provide concrete relief to the patient, and patient is generally tossing between the two conditions. That is, he doesn't want to let his illness ruin his life and affect his day-to-day activities and business and job and work profile and all, and at the same time he has to listen to the body pain and take the rest, and it badly affects to the patient psychology and patient's economy as well. And this is where Ayurvedic practitioners have great advantage. And let us see how we can explore this. If we go to the books, Manyagata Vata is mentioned only as a Griva Stambha or Manya Stambha. There is no specific mention of Manyagata Vata as a separate entity, and generally it is considered or covered under the broad umbrella of Gatavata only, especially the Sandhigata Vata. So the treatment of Manyagata Vata is similar to the treatment of Sandhigata Vata itself. But if we consider the Sandhigata Vata that is taught to us, we think that there are only two factors which are responsible for causing Sandhigata Vata. That is, one is Asthi Dhatu and another is Vata. Asthi and Vata have Ashraya Sambandha. So if Vata increases, Asthi decreases. That's why there is pain, and the patient, then such a patient we call it as a patient of Sandhigata Vata. But in practice, this doesn't work, and the whole thing turns around us while treating the patient. So we need to find out what are other factors associated with the cases of Manyagata Vata or Sandhigata Vata. Let us start with the factors which are already known and taught to us. Asthi. While explaining the Asthi, Sushruta has precisely to tell that asthi are basic supporting structures to a joint. Like we have a structure of pillars in a building. Similarly, asthi are the basic supporting structures that form the primary framework of any type of sandhi, including the manya sandhi. But in practice, these are the last sandhis which are generally affected. These are the last components of the sandhis that is generally affected. So it is not like that in every case there will be involvement of asthis, we can see. And second thing that we have to remember, that in as far as bones are considered, regeneration is not at all possible. So if we have patients which show gross destruction of the bones or great degenerative changes, then in those patients are actually not good for treatment, because in such patients the results that we can deliver are very limited. Results we can will deliver are for very short period of time, and these types of patients generally tend to suffer from some amount of pain throughout their life. So if the patient's x-ray is not showing any degeneration, actually it's time to congratulate to the patient and to yourself as a treating doctor, because it's good patient, it is good that there is no degeneration. That's why the patient can be treated very well, and probably the patient can be can completely recover from that type of condition. Then another thing that we have studied, but we don't know how to apply this or how to correlate it with clinically, is the Shleshak kapha that is involved in the sandhis. The Shleshak kapha is told as responsible for maintaining the strength, that is bala of the joint, and also sandhi sthairya, that is longevity of a joint. So if a sandhi needs to be preserved for longer time, the functioning of Shleshak kapha needs to be maintained. It is one of the first factors that might get involved in the pathology of any type of joint pain or pathology of Sandhigata Vata. Then the second factor is Snayu or Kandara. We have seen both these factors as Upadhatu of Meda and Rakta. It is evident in the Charak Samhita and Sushrut Samhita how Kandara and Snayu are formed. So indirectly, what we see is that the status of Rakta Dhatu, if it is not proper, if Rakta Dhatu is not functioning good in body, then it will have an effect on the status of Kandara, which is an integral part of Sandhi, and thereby it can affect the Sandhi, it can affect a joint, it can be a cause of pain, it can be a cause of degeneration as well. Similarly, Snayu are dependent on the status of Meda Dhatu. So whenever there is some disease or some condition that is affecting the status of Meda Dhatu, then similarly Meda Dhatu will affect the status of Snayu, and thereby it will affect the status of Sandhi as well. So whenever we are examining the patient, examination of these two dhatus becomes necessary. Now, why Snayu? We need to consider Snayu. While explaining or describing the Snayus, Sushruta has clearly mentioned that एवमेव शरीरेऽस्मिन् यावन्तः सन्धयः स्मृतः स्नायुभिः बहुभिर्बद्धा तेन भारसहानरा भारसहत्व, that can be translated as a tensile strength of a joint, is directly dependent on snayu, and all the joints, that is all the sandhis, are uh, joined together. The structure of the sandhis has been created by the snayubihi bahubihi baddha. So the snayus are responsible for the anatomical structure of the joint, and snayus are also dependent on the status of meda dhatus. So the status of meda is directly responsible through the snayus for the functioning of a joint. It is also a reference from Sushrut Samhita that the pain, severe pain, is produced because of the involvement of snayu. Na asthini, na vapesho, na sira, na cha sandhayah, vyapaditas tatha hanyuh, yatha snayu sharirinam. So whenever we see a patient with intense pain, there can be only two factors which can be responsible. One is involvement of snayu, and second is involvement of rakta dhatu. These two things should be kept in mind whenever we are seeing a case of intense neck pain. Further explaining the kandaras, Sharangdhar has told that prasarana and akunchana, that is contraction and relaxation of anything, is actually dependent on kandara, and peshi, that is nothing but the mausa dhatu, is responsible for giving the strength and covering all the structures those are uh, those are involved in a joint. So the status of kandara and the status of peshi is also responsible for the status of a joint. So now we have many more things than just asthi and vata, that is sleshak kapha, status of snayu and meda, status of kandara and rakta dhatu, status of peshi and mausa dhatu, that can affect the status of a joint, or derangement in any of these factors can cause a joint pain or sandhigata vata or manyagata vata. But still one more factor is missing from the list, and here there is advantage for Ayurveda, and that is Agni. Now this is also a very famous sutra, Roga Sarvepi Mandegnav. We have uh, mucked it up, we have written it multiple times, we have told it in the Vaivas, but we don't know how this sutra is applicable in day-to-day practice, because we are told that Agni is responsible for digestion of food, and if the food is not properly digested, we call it as ama. But if we take a reference of this sutra, Roga Sarvepi Mandegnav, along with this sutra that explains the functioning of Mahabhuta Agni, we need to consider that Agni is not just responsible for digestion, Agni is also responsible for metabolism of what is digested. So Agni has a dual function, digestion and metabolism. Now, how Agni is advantageous to Ayurveda? Now, if we want to diagnose a metabolic disease from modern science perspective, we need to conduct a battery of investigations. In Ayurveda, it is told that Jataro Bhagavan Agni, Jataragni is of prime importance, and it actually gives strength to the Dhatuvagnis and Mahabhutagnis. So, by Anumana, by assessing the functioning of the Jataragni, we can have an insight of how the functioning of Dhatuvagni and Panchamahabhutagnis would have been taking place in the body, and thereby we can assess the level of metabolism that can be seen in many other in patient. So the Agni Parikshan gives us an advantage of understanding the status of metabolism and not just the digestion. Now, it has been documented in the modern science that oxidative stress is a common component of metabolic dysfunction. And this oxidative stress is responsible for causing a lot of diseases, a lot of lifestyle diseases, including diseases of joint, including rheumatoid arthritis, including ankylosing spondylosis. And similarly, these metabolic derangements from insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome and diabetes mellitus are associated with inflammatory processes, and these inflammatory processes are also precursors of a lot of diseases. So in modern science also is correlating metabolic derangement with a lot of diseases related with the joints and other diseases as well. And from Ayurveda's perspective, this part we can understand by understanding or assessing the functioning of Jataragni. So now the picture becomes clear. What things we should consider when we are treating a patient of Manyagata Vata? Instead of starting from the left hand side, that is from the asthis, our examination and history taking needs to be started from the right hand side, that is from Agnis to the Asthi Dhatu, so that we can assess the status of each and every component that is involved in a joint, and we can have improvised treatment for any type of joint pain or any type of Manyagata Vata. Now, what approach should we keep towards the diagnosis of such cases? We need to take the detailed history and progress of the complaints and treatment taken if the patient is chronic. We need to take we need to consider the other coexisting conditions, the diet, occupation, trauma, addiction history, these things need to be considered. The patient examination needs to be done, local examination of the spine and the upper extremities is also necessary. The status of Agni to know the status of Ama, metabolism, the status of Grahani is also important, and the nature of pain is also important. It is not just that we write the neck pain. If we can describe how the pain, how the describe the pain, if the patient can describe the pain, or if we can make the patient to describe the pain, then there are some clues given in Ayurveda which are mentioned in reference to the other chapters, but we can also use it for the treatment of Manyagata Vata as well. Like if there is Santapa Tivra Ruja, probably the component that is involved from the joint is Rakta or Kandara. If the pain is Dandamushtihata, like somebody is beating pain, the patient tells that I feel that somebody is beating me. That type of pain is generally seen uh, due to the involvement of Mausa, Meda, or Peshi and Snayu. If there is Bheda, like Bhedavat pain and Santataruk, that is the pain is continuous and it is like a fracture pain, then the component that is involved is probably Asthi and Majja. Here the patient will typically tell us that the pain doesn't subside even after taking analgesics or even after taking strongest of steroids and every other allopathic available treatment, the pain still persists. The intensity may reduce or decrease. In such type of condition, there may be involvement of Asti and Majja. For Amavata and Vatarakta, we all know that the description of pain mentioned is Prushchik Damshavat Vedana or Akuvishavat Vedana. So the description of pain can hint us about which type of component is involved or might be involved in causing the joint pain or neck pain. And other examinations or observations are also important. If the stamba is present or stamba is absent, generally it is seen that if the pain is associated with margavarodha or samadosha sanchiti, then stamba or stiffness will be present for a longer duration, like half an hour or 1 hour or throughout the day. If the stiffness is present only during the initiation of movement of that particular body part, and the stiffness is diminished after starting of the movement, then it is generally not related with the samavastha. Along with that, the range of movement that we can consider, Shotha, if it is present in the neck area or absent. The karmahani, jnanendriya karmahani in the form of loss of touch or diminished touch, and karmendriya karmahani, the motor function loss of any upper limb or any single finger is indicative of jnanendriya and karmendriya hani, karmahani. Dhatukshaya, that can be evident as wasting of muscles. Araktata, inflammation if it is present or absent, and Sashabda Kriya if it is present or absent. These all add up to give us good amount of insight of the knowledge of the condition. So here, this is how we can this is how we can come to a precise diagnosis of a case of Manyagata Vata or Manyashula, and try to assess which are the factors involved in the pathology. But before treating, we should consider these points. Can it be cured? Because a case of severe cervical spondylosis may come to us and may expect that this doctor will make me pain free within 1 week or within 15 days of time period. And if we fail to do so, the person will curse Ayurveda. And we have already discussed that more if the asti dhatu or the bones are involved to the greater extent, then complete recovery is not possible. So we need to ask and we need to convey to the patient whether the condition in which patient has reached us is curable or not curable. If the patient is not curable, what can be done? What maximum extent can be done to give relief to the patient? So at the outset itself, if we tell the patient that you cannot remain free of medicines, or we cannot cure you, but we can make you uh, independent of any analgesics, we can make you uh, free from symptoms for a long period. You need not have to take any analgesic, but the pathology will be there. And if you don't follow the do's and don'ts properly, ahara vihara properly, there can be recurrence. If we tell this patient at the outset, the patient does not expect too much things from us. And thereafter, we need to convey to the patient what timeline we require to achieve these types of goals, because the patient expects us to deliver results within 7 days, and if we fail to do so, the patient tries and the patient curses the shastra that Ayurvedic treatment is not useful in such condition, and the patient also is making the doctor, the defaming the doctor, and it affects the practice as well. So at the outset, if we communicate to the patient that it will take minimum of 2 months to give 50% of pain relief, the patient can appreciate that, and the patient can abide to our treatment. So the compliance is good if we are clear on these points before we begin with the treatment. And if the patient is not following us, it's better that we say no to the patient that I'm not going to treat you because you are not following my instructions. Then patient starts our treatment and afterwards says, no, I will not come to you again. So at the outset, we need to classify the pain as whether it is acute pain or chronic pain, whether it is Margavarodhajanya or Dhatukshayajanya, any associated diseases, status of Agni, the status of Dushas, and the status of Indriya, that is Jnanendriya, that is Sparshanendriya, and Karmendriya, that is Ubhaya Hasta, which of them is involved and up to what extent it is involved. Now, the treatment approach that is explained in classics for Sandhigata Vata is Kuryat Sandhigate Vate Dahasvedopanāhanam. Sushruta has elaborated it more that Sneha, Upanaha, Agnikarma, Bandhana, Unmardana. These things are to be done when the Snayu, Sandhi, and Asthi are involved due to the vitiation of Vata, or we should give skandavakshastika praptam vayu manyagatam tatha vamanam hanti nasyam cha. So vamana is also indicated. So we'll try to see how each treatment can be applied in clinical practices and what are the do's and don'ts or indications and contraindications for such treatments. Daha, one of the popular treatments that is done in cases of cervical spondylosis. Now we should see the indications. Agni karma done in any type of case can give pain relief, but here we are trying to see in which cases Agni karma can give complete relief. If Agni karma is done especially in Nirupastambhita Vata, if acute onset condition where asthi are not much involved, and in Achaya Purvak Vata Prakop, if Vata Prakop or the involvement of Vata is Chaya Purvak, that is in greater quantities, then Agni Karma may give relief, but it will be there for very small period of time. So these are basically indications. Agni Karma is a type of a Trasana Chikitsa, and Trasana Chikitsa is actually advisable in only such cases where the gati of vayu, the direction of flow of vata, is altered, and it can be corrected by this shock type of thing. So in such conditions agni karma is indicated. In other conditions it may give relief, but there will be recurrence of pain. Who can be the absolute contraindications? If there is rakta dhatu is involved, if rakta is dushak in such conditions, or in very chronic cases, the agni karma or daha karma is contraindicated. So rational use of this type of treatment is necessary, because trasana itself can become a hetu of vata prakop if done repeatedly or unjudiciously. Now it has been evaluated in current times as well. It has showed that statistical significant results are seen in relieving pain, stiffness, in improving the flexion, extension, and lateral movement of and reduction in tingling and numbness in 50 patients, and the results are quite good. In 92% of patients got complete relief from cervical pain. This has been published in some good journal. Then Svedana is also advocated in such type of cases. We have multiple types of Svedana. Now let us try to categorize the type of Svedana according to the dusha that is involved and the status of the patient. Mrudu Nadi Sveda, Svedan for a small period of time and with the Nadi. In this condition, if the dusha is Rakta, this type of Mrudu Nadi Sved will be very much helpful. Or if the patient is Durbala or Bala or Bhiru, then also Mrudu Nadi Sved is advocated. In cases of Margavarodhajanya Vata Prakop, and if the Mausa or Med is Dusha or Snayu and Mausa Peshi are involved in the pathology or they are responsible for the pain, then Patrapinda Sveda is beneficial in such conditions. In cases of Dhatu Kshaya, severe muscle wasting, or in cases of power loss, power gradient, if the power in either of the extremities is less, or if the dushya is asthi, then Shalishashtika Pindasveda along with Annalepa can be helpful. And in cases of Margavarodha, especially in collection of Amadosha Sanchiti, and if Mausa and Meda are dushya, Upanaha Sved is also beneficial. So Svedana we can categorize according to the status of the patient and according to the involvement of dushya. Snehana also we can do in a two ways. Samvahana, that gives the sukha to the patient, that is not that is done with very gently, and mardana means kneading the patient, or mardana means applying appropriate pressure on the body parts, and samvahana we can use rather indicated in cases of dhatukshaya, in durbala patients, in vruddha and bala patients, in severe pain also. Snehana by the type of samvahana is useful. If the dushya is rakta, then pinda taila is useful in such type of condition. And if dushya is asthi, then ketaki muladi taila is useful for samvahana in cases of manyagata vata. In cases of margavarodha, or if the dushya is mausa and meda, then snehana with kottam chukyadi or mardana with kottam chukyadi and vishagarbha taila along with patrapinda sveda can give good results in cases. Now let us come to the vamana. Vamana is not used to a greater extent in treating the cases of manyagata vata, but if we see the context of vamana, then we can understand that it is not for a general purpose. So there has to be some specific condition of manyagata vata that will be relieved by vamana. So the indication for vamana treatment will be margavarojanya manyagata vata, if there is anubandha or involvement of kapha and pitta, and if the condition is chronic and recurring, but the bala of patient is not hampered to the great extent. In such conditions only vamana can be tried. In my practice, I haven't seen anyone giving vamana for treatment of manyagata vata, but the textual references gives us an insight about what could be the indications and precautions. Some precautions we need to take while we are administering vamana, because uh, because vamana we are applying as a treatment of vata vyadhi. So in such condition, before proceeding for vamana, uttama snehana lakshana should be seen in the patient. And for vamana also, we need not go for uttama shuddhi, but mrudu or madhyama shuddhi is advisable, because uttama shuddhi may lead to the further vata prakop and may actually aggravate the problem. And we should apply vamana in such a way that there are no upadravas, because upadrava are can be nightmare in condition of vata vyadhis. Let us come to the most specific treatment as far as manyagata vata is concerned, and that is nasya. We know that there are multiple types of nasya, like navana, avapida, mahapana, dhuma, and pratimarsha and marshanasya. But out of these, only the types of nasya which have a green background are evaluated for the connection in connection with the manyagata vata. Rest other types of nasya are not practiced or not documented. So there is a lot of scope for evaluation of different types of nasya as far as manyagata vata is considered. We know that Manya is in the area of Urdhva which falls under the working area or the effective area of Nasya. So Nasya can be a good treatment, but the current scenario is good results are seen in clinical practice. Many of the practitioners are using different Nasya Yoga in treating the cases of Manyagata Vata, but Marsha or Pratimarsha Nasya or Snaihika Nasya are mostly used, other types are not used. But if we explore the other types in different conditions related to Manyagata Vata, of course, with the proper background work of diagnosing the particular involvement of Dushya, then Nasya can be a game changer when treatment of the cervical spine diseases. So in practice, what types of taila or what types of ghruta are used in treatment of Manyagata Vata? Anutaila is generally used for Nasya in Manyagata Vata if the Samprapti is due to Margavarodha, or if the Samprapti is having Anubandha of Kapha, and if the Dushyas are Meda and Mausa, or Kandara or Snayu and Peshi. Ksheerabala Taila or Dhanvantara Taila are used when the Samprapti is due to Dhatukshaya and involvement of Indriya is also seen, that is, there is hyperesthesia or hypoesthesia, or there is muscular wasting or loss of power, then Ksheerabala Taila or Dhanvantara Taila are used. Or if the Dushya is Asti, then also both these oils are used. Ksheerabala Taila, Avarti is also used in such conditions. Sukumara Ghruta can be used for Nasya if there is Dhatukshaya or involvement of Indriyas, and if the Dushya is Rakta. In general, Tilataila and Gogruta are also used, but those are used just to maintain the effect, like Rasayana. So we start with the appropriate Siddha Taila or Siddha Ghruta, and whenever the patient is having good amount of relief, we ask the patient to use Tilataila and Gogruta and do a Pratimarsha Nasya at his or her home, so that the effect of Nasya is maintained further. In this way, the Nasya is useful in many of the cases of Manyagata Vata, but there is a caution that we should follow while we are administering Nasya, that Koshtha Shuddhi plays key role in delivering the result. So if the Koshtha of the patient is Shuddha, then and then only the results are seen in a good amount and long lasting. To understand this thing, we need to consider this concept of doshagati that we have seen in the our UG or PG tenure. Dosha are produced in the Annavaha Srotas or Mahasrotas. They have a specific gati by which they go into the shakhas. They have a specific reasons by which they come to the Koshtha again. But Koshtha or Annavaha Srotas remains the main site that nurtures or nourishes the doshas, and that is responsible for conducting the normal functions of doshas, which are responsible for the maintenance of the body. So now let us see why Koshtha Shuddhi is important before administering the Nasya. Let us consider this man, and there is collection of ama, Annaja ama in the Mahasrotasa, and if we try to administer Nasya in this particular patient, now Nasya is a Shodhana Kriya, is a Panchakarma Kriya, and if we try to give this patient Shodhana Nasya, then we know that Shodhana requires increase in the gati of Vayu in that particular direction through which the Shodhana procedure is happening. And in this condition, if the Koshtha is not Shuddha, then due to the effect of the medicines which we are using for the Nasya, this dosha which are present in the Koshtha will be pulled towards towards the Urdhva area. So in such cases, we may get relief, but that relief can be there temporary. So the patient will have recurrence, the patient will have increased pain after some days. Instead of that, consider this person, he is also having dosha collection in the Annava Srotas, and before giving Nasya, if we do a Shodhana of Koshtha by giving Virechana or by giving Vamana or by giving Basti or by any means, and then if we go for Nasya procedure, then the effect will be that there will be no dosha collection in Annava Srotas or Mahasrotas. So there will be no recollection of doshas in the Urdhva Chaturgata area, and thereby the patient will get relief that will be long lasting and that will be absolute. So whenever we are administering Nasya in any of the Manyakata Vata cases, we need to take care that there is Koshtha Shuddhi, we have achieved Koshtha Shuddhi before we administer any type of Shodhana Nasya. Now let us consider the Shamana Chikitsa. In Shamana Chikitsa, Trayodashanga Guggulu is one of the famous drugs that is extensively used in cases of Manyagata Vata, and that is also reported to show improvement in Manyagraha, Mausa and Balakshaya as well. Similarly, Panchatikta Gruta Guggula especially is indicated if the Dushya is Rakta and Asthi. Mahayogaraj Guggulu or Suvarna Mahayogaraj for that case is also indicated whenever there is Dhatukshaya or whenever the Dushya is especially Asthi and whenever there is involvement of Indriya seen, or Trifala Gokulu whenever there is Margavarodha or Dushya is Meda and Mausa. So according to the involvement of Dushyas, we can uh, categorize the type of Gugulu that we are using. The other Shamana Chikitsa involves Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is also reported to improve the Shula, rather Graha, Mausa and Balakshaya, especially in cases of cervical spondylosis. So Ashwagandha is useful. You know that Ashwagandha is Madhura and Snigdha and increases the Bala. So whenever there is Balakshaya and due to Balakshaya if there is pain, Ashwagandha will help nicely. The different forms of Manjishtadi in the form of Churna, in the form of Ghanavati, in the form of fresh Kashaya, Mahamanjishtadi is useful. I have extensively used it whenever there is pathology related with Rakta, Sira or Kandara, or the patient is free from pain, but still the patient says that there is tingling and numbness somewhere in the arms. Then in such condition, only Mahamanjishtadi Ghana can be useful because the main involved factor for causing the tingling and numbness is Rakta and Kandara. One another yoga that has been extensively used, I have also used it in many cases, is the combination of Vacha and Pimple Moon. This combination I have used in Margavarodhajanya cases whenever there is Dusha, whenever the Meda and Mausa is Dusha, and whenever there is lot of Stambha present. In some cases, I have used this combination in cases of Manyagata Vata, but those are having prolapse intervertebral disc. In such cases also, to reduce the tingling, numbness and radiculopathy, this combination has worked wondrously. Then Dhanvantara Gutika, we know that it is a Rasayana medicine. So in cases where the pain is reduced, whenever the other symptoms are reduced, then we can go for Dhanvantara Gutika, especially in cases of Dhatukshaya, and to maintain the status quo of the condition. This is how we can go for the Shamana Chikitsa. And one thing that all the practitioners don't give importance to is the Vyayama. It has been told, and we have also learnt it from our first year BAMS, that Vyayama Sthairya it gives strength, it gives, it increases the tone of muscles, and it gives the stability to the body. So vibhakta ghana gatratvam vyayamaad upajayate. This all we know. And in this area, the branch of physiotherapy have a lot of good exercises. If you send your patient of any joint pain or cervical pain for that matter to a physiotherapist, there are other treatment modalities like ultrasonic, various other treatments like thermal treatment is there, traction is there, but physiotherapists can suggest specific exercises according to the involvement of muscle. So if some specific muscle is weak, we can advise that particular exercise which will strengthen that muscle, and thereby we can give better results. So combining our treatment along with these specific exercises for different cervical muscles is beneficial in cases of long run. So if we have a combination of Shodhana, Shamana, and Vyayama along with the Pathya that we advise to the patient, our treatment, Ayurvedic treatment, can be very much beneficial and can give long lasting result to the cases of cervical spine disorders or Manyagata Vata. In nutshell, we should remember that we should look for the cause. We should give appropriate Shodhana Chikitsa if necessary. We should give appropriate Shamana Chikitsa as per the factor involved. And we should combine all these treatments with specific Vyayama at specific stage of the disease. If we combine these factors, this combination will give us wonderful results in treatment of cervical pain or Manyagata Vata. Thank you all for listening patiently. If there are any questions, I would like to take.
Thank you, sir, for such an informative and knowledgeable session on Mannagat Vat, its practical applications and Chikitsa part also. Sir, we will wait for 1 minute
Okay.
and we'll take the questions from the delegates. We request delegates, if there are any queries or questions regarding today's session, they can put it in the chat box. So we'll take it one by one.
There is one query, that difference between the Stambha and Graha. These are actually two sides of same coin. So Stambha and Graha are used as an alternative at many places. Basically, what they mean is inability for free movement of the particular organ.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Sir, we will take questions for you.
Yeah.
You can just give answers.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Sir, next one from Dr. Habibul. Sir, how can we know that is due to the Dhatukshayajanya or due to Margavarod?
See, the symptoms are clearly written in the classics. The Dhatukshayajanya will have the causes related to Dhatukshaya, like excessive work or some history of trauma, or due to age factor, due to the occupation, like that. And Margavarojanya will have its own specific hetus, like from ahara and vihara of that particular patient as well. The Dhatukshayajanya will have pain, but stambha or the stiffness will be there only during the initial initial phase of the movement of that particular joint or neck. Whereas in Margavarojanya, the stambha will be long lasting. In Dhatukshayajanya, there is less probability of having Shotha, but in Margavarojanya, Shotha will be more, will be available in more amount.
Wait a minute, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Sir, uh, Amit Kashit asking, sir, please tell the drug used in Upanaha Sweda.
The Upanaha Sveda consists of wheat flour, then mustard, that is sarshapa, and there is haridra. There is some people also put rasona in that. There is oil, water, and all that is cooked nicely, and that is put in the affected area. We can introduce some drugs uh, as per our knowledge and as per the condition that is demanding. But these are the general ingredients. It is called as poultice, and it is practiced as a home remedy in many of the homes.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Next one from Dr. Amrita Jaiswal. Is Basti in Griva Basti is useful?
Yes, Basti and Griva Basti, especially Manya Basti or Griva Basti, are useful, but these are nothing but the altered forms of Snehana only. So we keep the contact of oil on our skin for a longer duration. That's why the absorption is more. Griva Basti is useful in cases of Dhatukshaya, not much useful in cases of Margavarod Janya Manyagata Vata. And we should first see whether for how much amount of or how much period of time the patient can remain in that particular position that is required for applying the Griva Basti. Because if the patient is able to be in that position only for 10 minutes, and if we are giving Griva Basti for 15 or 20 minutes, then the end result is increase in pain. So we should first see the possibility of administering Griva Basti, and then according to that we need to adjust the time of Griva Basti.
Okay, sir. Next one from Ravi Kumar. If a patient have a shoulder injury, then symptoms of numbness and inability to move are. What are the guidelines for the treatment?
See, we need to see what type of injury is there, because if there is a case of shoulder injury, then definitely it will not be a case of Manyagata Vata, it will be a case of Vishwachi. So we need to see which factors are involved uh, for causing the numbness and inability of the movement. But in this case, generally, if the patient is unable to lift the hand uh, beyond a particular height, like which is seen generally in cases of frozen shoulder, then Patrapinda Sveda gives good result. And Snehana with Karpasasthya Taila also gives good results.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Next one from Dr. Navneet. How to treat and understand vertigo in cervical spondylosis?
See, in cases of cervical spondylosis, if the vertigo is related with the movement of neck, then generally it is related with the cervical spondylosis. So make the patient sit before you, ask the patient to roll or to move his neck in a clockwise or anti-clockwise direction, and if that is causing the vertigo, then generally it can be correlated or it can be related with the cervical spondylosis pathology. And in such condition also, Nasya will give good results.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Next one from once again Dr. Amit Kashit. Difference between nature of
Vrushchik Damshavat Vedana.
वृश्चिक दंशोद वेदना and अवृश्चिक वेदना.
See, the problem that is in these two symptoms is that Vrushchik Damshavat Vedana literally means the pain that is equivalent to the bite of a scorpion. And Akhu Vishavat Vedana is pain of that intensity as if some rat has of a rat bite. And even though they are mentioned in classics, the patient doesn't tell us that he is having this particular pain that is mimicking like a scorpion bite. I have also the same question, that if the patient has not suffered from scorpion bite in his life, how can he explain that it is a Vrushchik Damshavad Vedana? So that is a problem. But we can understand it that very severe pain is there, and we can correlate it as a Vrushchik Damshavad Vedana. I have yet to see a patient who has a scorpion bite and who is telling me that I have same type of pain that was there when the scorpion had bitten me.
Okay, sir. Next one from Maithili Agate. Please explain Manya or Griva Basti.
Okay. In Manya or Griva Basti, it is done in a similar way like Kati Basti. So we give a particular position to the patient so that the cervical spine area remains relatively straight, and then we put the black gram dove or Masha Kalka along with the cervical spine area, covering from the majority of the area of cervical spines, at least up to the cervical prominence, that is C7. And then we pour the oil in it, warm oil. We change the oil as it gets cold. So the procedure is same like Kati Basti.
Okay, sir. Next one from Sajjala. Sir, difference between treatment in Manyagat Vaat and Katigat Vaat. Difference between treatment in Manyagat Vaat and Katigat Vaat.
Okay. Manyagata Vata and Katigata Vata both are caused due to Vata only, but the area that is affected is different. So in Manyagata Vata, Nasya will be more useful, whereas in Katigata Vata, Basti will be more useful. Apart from that, whatever medicines that we are using will be can be same in both the cases. But the Shodhana treatment that we are using will be different in Manyagata Vata and Katigata Vata. Hello?
Hello.
Huh.
Hello. Sir. From next from Amit Kashit. Is Rakta Mokshana helpful, especially cupping therapy?
Rakta Mokshana can help precisely if there is uh, pain due to Rakta Dushti. Otherwise, Rakta Mokshana can give temporary relief like Agni Karmite, but it will not give long lasting relief. So if the Hetu is of Rakta Dushti, and if we can see the involvement of Kandara and Rakta Dhatu in causing the neck pain, then Rakta Mokshana can be useful. But the thing that we should follow for Rakta Mokshana is that the Koshta Shuddhi should be achieved first. Like we have seen in the cases of Nasya, if Koshta Shuddhi is not there, then the relief is temporary or no relief is seen. Same thing will happen with the Rakta Mokshana as well. So if Rakta is Dusha, Rakta Mokshana will be the treatment of choice.
Okay, sir. Next one from Vaidyas Khan. Please tell dose of Vacha and Pimple Mool combination. Pimple Mool, is it Pimply Mool, sir?
Yes, it is Wimply only. And the dose that I have used is 125 milligram each to 500 milligram each, depending upon the age of the patient and tolerability of the patient, especially for Vacha. Because in some cases, if Vacha can cause nausea and vomiting to some cases. In that case, we need to reduce the dose of Vacha. But I have used it in the dose ranging from 125 milligram each to 500 milligrams each.
Okay, sir. Next one from Dr. Amrita. In cervical spondylosis, what will be the treatment for vertigo?
In cases of cervical spondylosis. Yes, as I have told before, that Nasya will be very, very useful in such cases. Apart from that, if If the vertigo is tremendous, then use of Suta Shekhar or Suvarna Sut Shekhar can also be helpful. Or Mastishke, that is Shiropichu for that matter, is also useful in relieving the symptom of vertigo.
Okay, sir. Next one from Dr. Rekha. Sthana of Agni Karma in Manyagavat.
Generally, the most tender point is considered as sthana for Agni Karma Chikitsa in Manyagavat.
Okay, sir. Next one from Varsha. Some give Basti and Nasya together. It is correct, and if yes, which should be given first?
Basti means not Manya Basti, but Gudagata Basti.
Yes, sir.
See, generally we don't do Shodhana by two ways, by two means in one time. So I have not practiced it, and I have not seen good practitioners practicing in this way. So it is not advisable to give Basti and Nasya simultaneously.
Okay. Dr. Neeraj Arora, there are some 1 minute, sir. There are some patients of hunchback. How to deal and what procedures are best in that condition?
Oh, what is meant by hunchback basically?
Also not. HUNCHBAC.
Yes, but I mean, what is the presentation of the patient like, or what we can, what is the nearest possible Ayurvedic diagnosis for such patients?
ठीक आहे सर आपण पुढे पाहूया तो क्वेश्चन आला तर घेऊया नेक्स्ट वन फ्रॉम डॉक्टर रवीना can same treatment protocol can be used for कटिगत वात आणि पुरुषगत वात precisely involving the other nerves of the spine.
Yeah, similar treatment protocol can be used. See, because sandhi are same, the components involved in a structure of joint are same throughout the body. It may be a griva sandhi, it may be a sandhi in prushtha, it may be a knee joint, it may be an elbow joint. So if we have a skill to diagnose the factor that is involved and that is causing the pain, the same treatment protocol can be used, but Shodhan Chikitsa, if needed, will be different according to the area which we are targeting.
Okay, sir. Next one from Sajjala. At what extent we can treat Manyagat Vat?
At what extent we can treat Manyagata Vata? Generally, if you have seen this our treatment algorithm, if the patient is having acute radiating neck pain with gross neurological and muscular power loss, then such type of patients are dangerous in our treatment. Not dangerous because of any other thing, but they don't get relief in very small amount of time, and the pathology keeps on progressing. So in cases in which there is increase in pathology or the pathology is progressing in spite of all our efforts, such cases need to be reviewed, and if needed, another opinion needs to be taken. And patients who have gross motor and neurological deficit till the time of onset itself needs a second thought before we start treating such cases.
Okay, sir. Next one from Jyoti Mutija. What line of treatment should be given in cervical disc prolapse and herniation?
See, it should again the cervical disc we can correlate with a particular type of snayu. So if there is disc prolapse, we can consider it as an margavarudhujanya vata prakop, and we need to treat it accordingly. In such cases, nasya and use of vacha and pimpli mold and use of suvarna kalpa, such as Bruhatvat Chintamani, can give good results.
Okay, sir. Next one from Dr. Ravi Kumar. Yesterday, sir told there is a regeneration of Asti Dhatu throughout life, so degeneration can be reserved. But today, us said it cannot be regenerated. Please elaborate.
See, Asti Dhatu can regenerate itself in cases of fractures. But once the ossification is complete, there is no further growth of bones. And there is yet a person, there is not a single person in which there is gross degeneration of bones and all of it is reversed. What we can achieve is a little bit increase in calcium content or calcium concentration in that particular bone. That can be achieved. But the herniation or the loss of bony tissue cannot be regenerated by any of the treatment. It may be modern treatment, it may be Ayurvedic treatment, it may be any treatment.
Okay, sir.
So regeneration is possible in cases of fractures only, but there is no growth of bone as such once the ossification process is complete.
Okay, sir. Next one from Amit Kashid. How we select drugs? Gugul, Kalpa, Rasakalpa, Ekaldravya according to different stages. Is there is any specific protocol to select drug?
Actually, there is no specific protocol to select these drugs, but as I have elaborated in the presentation, we need to assess or we need to understand which are the doshas involved in this condition. And according to the involvement of dosha, we need to select the Gugul Kalpa or Rasakalpa or Ekaladravya. What I have seen is if there is involvement of multiple doshas simultaneously, then Rasakalpa like Sindur or Pannag is necessary. If there is only single dosha involved, if the intensity of pain is not that great, then only herbal medicines or only Ekala Dravya are also sufficient. To begin with, we need to start with the full battery of our medications like some Gugul Kalpa, some Rasakalpa, some herbomineral combination, some Shodhan treatment, some local treatment. And as the patient starts getting relief, we can cut down on one part of the treatment. And at the end of the treatment, we can keep the patient only on one particular Rasayana treatment or and along with that some Vyayama. For exercises also, it is, I forgot to tell, but we should understand that exercises are to be advised to the patient when the patient can do it. So exercises are advised to the patient only when the condition is achieved that the exercise is not increasing the pain beyond certain limit. See, then it becomes a different approach than physiotherapist. Physiotherapist will ask every patient to follow one particular schedule of exercises, though the patient is suffering from severe pain or the patient is having pain even after doing the exercises. But we should use it rationally. If due to exercises the patient is having increase in pain or the patient needs to take analgesic or the pain becomes unbearable, then our exercises are too much for that particular patient. So this particular, there is no such specific particular protocol, but generally it is based on the involvement of doshas.
Okay, sir. Next one from Dr. Taneja. Can we use Kshirokalpana in degenerative diseases and how much result can be expected?
Kshira Kalpana are useful, but I mean, I'm using it abundantly as a maintenance treatment in cases related with the joints and in different cases of Sandhigata Vata. And in such cases, Panchatikta Gruta Kshira is useful, or only Guruchi Siddha Kshira is also useful, or Shatavari Siddha Kshira is also useful. I've used all these 3-4 types of, or Ashwagandha Siddha Kshira is also useful, but I have predominantly used it as a Rasayana treatment when all other treatments are over and patient is relatively free of symptoms and relieved. Then we can use Kshira Kalpana as a maintenance treatment.
Okay, sir. Next one from Dr. Amrita Jaiswal. Will Viddha Karma plus Agni Karma will help in pain in cervical spondylosis?
Viddha karma plus Agni karma will help in the pain in cervical. Agni karma, as I have told, it works. Viddha karma, I have not seen or I have not practiced, so I cannot comment on the effect of Viddha karma and Agni karma in cases of cervical spondylosis.
Sir, how to treat Manyagat Vat is associated with Avabahuk?
See, if Manyagatavada and Navabahuka both are present, then it indicates that the basic disease is Manyagatavada and Avabahuka is its offshoot that is dependent on the pathology of Manyagatavada, or we can say Upadrava. Then we need to first consider the Manyagatavata as the main disease. But in cases of Avabahuka, there is a lot of stiffness. So we need to apply a good amount of Patrapinda Sveda in the Bahu area where there is stiffness and pain. That much difference we need to take. Otherwise, treatment of Manyagata itself will help in relieving the symptoms of Avabahuka also.
Okay, sir. Next one from Dr. Neeraj Arora. Best pillows and mattresses to be used in case of Manyastambha and Katikshul.
Best pillows is not to use pillows, but if patient is habitual for using the pillow, we should ask the patient that it should not be more than 1 inch thick in cases of Manyagata Vata.
Okay.
Because thicker the pillow, the position of the vertebrae becomes odd and that increases the pain. So many patients many patients tell us that after using the pillow, the pain is aggravating.
Okay, sir. Next one from Ravi Kumar. If patient have a intense pain and the patient not want to with Agni Karma, then what is the other treatment process?
Sorry, I couldn't get your question.
If the patient have intense pain and patient is not ready for the Agni Karma, then what is the other treatment?
See, what I have told in the presentation also, we need to concentrate on why there is intense pain, which of the factors of the joints are involved. In some cases, Agni Karma is useful, but in some cases, Agni Karma has given result only for a day, and on the next day, the pain has increased as well. In one of my experiences, there is a case that a patient was suffering from cervical spine pain for almost 1.5 years, and the pain vanished just after one sitting of Sthanik Snehan and Sweden. So we need to actually go into the deeper level of our understanding about the disease, and then we can precisely uh, explain what treatment can be done. But if the patient is not ready for Agni Karma, and if we want to achieve pain relief immediately, then in some cases, lepa like the Shangalep or lepa of Shunthi can can reduce the intensity of pain, or Raktamokshan in such cases can reduce the intensity of pain. So whenever we are trying to deal with severe intensity of pain, then Agni Karma, Raktamokshan or Lepa can be useful.
Okay, sir. Next one from Mithali. In degenerative cases, what should be the medications and the line of treatment to make them analgesic free?
See, firstly, we need to tell to the patient that if you are taking analgesic twice daily, we cannot stop it randomly right from the day one of Ayurvedic treatment, because patient's body is habitual to such analgesics. and if we withdraw analgesics on the day 1 itself, then patient will come to us with severe pain, and that will require even more amount of analgesic to treat. So we should tell the patient that gradually you can be analgesic free, and in such cases we need to begin with good amount of snehana, that is Sauvahana with Kshirabalatel if it is a degenerative case, then Nasya with Kshirabalatel also, with Kshirabalatel, use of Swarna Mahayogaraj Gugulu in such cases is useful. Use of Kashayas or Kshirapaka is useful, and gradually we should decrease the analgesics required. If the patient is initially taking 2 per day, ask the patient to continue twice 2 per day for first 15 days. If the patient is symptom free, if the patient is tolerating your treatment, ask him to reduce the dose of analgesic to 1 per day, or half in the morning and half in the evening, or 1 per day. Then if the patient is tolerating it again, then decrease the intensity of analgesic. If the patient is taking ibugesic and paracetamol combination, shift him on only paracetamol combination, and ultimately ask the patient to take the analgesics when only required. Like that, we need to deal with patients who have degenerative cervical pain and who are dependent on analgesics.
Okay, sir. Thank you. This one is last question, sir. Is any murmur stimulation, murmur manipulation help to reduce pain permanently in cervical region?
If there is involvement of murmur, especially, I'm telling it theoretically because I have not seen patients, people who are practicing murmur manipulations, or I'm not practicing it in my practice as well. If there is altered gati of vayu related with the murmur and that is causing the pain, then with the murmur manipulation, that gati can be made normal, and then the patient will get permanent relief in pain from cervical region. But it will need deeper understanding of the factors involved in cervical pain.
Okay, sir. Thank you. As there is a time bonding with the speaker, sir, we request to you, can we join you in WhatsApp group? So there is some queries to participate.
Okay, no problem. You can add me in the group. I will try to answer as detailed as I can.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you. So we declare today's session is over. You can leave now.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Okay, thank
organizer.
you very much, sir. Thank
Manish
you.
Patil, sir. It was nice to see Ashish. It was nice to talk to you, Ashish, after a very long time. Thank you, Dr. Amit, as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shailesh Deshpande. I will take this opportunity to congratulate you for this nice session. And I will again thank you, Dr. Hitesh Chaudhary and Dr. Samir Mahajan and Dr. Sumdata Kulkarni also, who all are the speakers who are present for today's session. And thanks a lot, Dr. Hitesh Chaudhary, for your inputs in the chat box. And I hope you will continue with us for a longer time. And thanks once again. Now the meeting is over. Delegate can leave the meeting. Thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
So welcome.